Hi Rob, just wanted to give you a quick overview of some of the stuff and make some comments around the taxonomy files you sent in. So I thought I'd do it via a screen cam so I can show you through the steps. In order to bring the stuff in, you need to create a new model. So IDC test, which will create a new database behind the scenes. And then use the zthes import in order to bring that in. So I want to do a full import. And our imports are broken into two files. We have a data file and a data definition file. The data definition file essentially just extends the standard, the basic thesaurus standard with other metadata. Quite often use the metadata as the default. It's a good one to pick. You may have different metadata that you want to overwrite. And that should load up a model like this. What I've done is I've imported two files. I've imported the IDC, taxonomy IDC and the taxonomy MI, and I've got a few sort of comments to make around that. The reason it comes in this format is I've used what's called multiple hierarchies. So I'm making the assumption that IDC is a master set of vocabulary of which different businesses then would want to share a subset. So, for example, geography is common across IDC and MI, but MI has other terms. So what this is showing me is the IDC hierarchy and the MI data sort of separate. It has no place to go. And the reason it has no place to go is I've used two hierarchies. It's quite subtle, but if you right mouse click within this panel, you get the list of hierarchies. So you can see I've used the BTNT hierarchy for IDC. I've used manufacturing insights NT and manufacturing insights BT. So if I select that one, I get all my IDC terms that have no parentage, and somewhere under here I will have manufacturing insights. To make that all a lot easier to work with, if I hit this filter hierarchy option, I essentially just get to work at one at a time. So what I've done here is said, well, geography is pretty much common, so you can draw down geography using this relationship. I haven't built it all the way down. And then these are essentially different hierarchies that are specific to manufacturing insights. What it allows me essentially to do is say within one model have a master controlled vocabulary and very easily be able to flick between the companies. Now the beauty of this is, of course, if you add a term or if you change a term, so if I change Central and Eastern Europe to Central, Eastern and Southern Europe, that will be reflected in every hierarchy that used that term. So part of the question and the debate that I was sort of having when loading this is what is this for? I can imagine that this currently is used as some navigation mechanism or some list generator for the various companies. But if you're using it to add metadata, then you actually want a common set of tags, because essentially those tags, when they get added as metadata to pages or documents, they live outside of the hierarchy they're in. So you'd want it to commonly say Central and Eastern Europe wherever that is used. So using this central set would be a very valid approach. Within this, we have a few problems of how to handle duplicates. You have a number of ways of duplicating those actual terms across the various facets. A simple one would be within Greece, for example. Greece appears under Central and Eastern Europe and under Europe. Now, we can model this in a number of ways. The question is, what's the best way of doing it? Here I've made it what we call polyhierarchical. So Greece is under Europe, and Greece is also under, it should be under here somewhere, Central and Eastern Europe. Where is it? I just can't see it there. But essentially that's the same term with two parents to it. If I look at I can look at the family, and I can see that it builds out in both different directions up the same hierarchy tree to get to Greece. So that's one way of managing it. A second way of managing it is you can make things distinct. So here, for example, consumer devices, I've changed the import to make the term unique. I've appended the word hardware to consumer devices and PCs hardware to distinguish it from, for example, PCs which are under consumer. We have a third way of doing it potentially. If I configure the model and configure structure, the first thing you can do actually is enable classes within the model, and then there's this one would become available, duplicate terms between classes. So what I could say is I can have a class of hardware and a class of consumer, and I couldn't use the word PCs within the hardware class twice, but I could have PCs under the class of hardware and PCs under the class of consumer, so I can manage it that way. So essentially I'm making it sort of unique within class. Or the other option, which is I've also gone for in this model, is I can just say just allow duplicate term names, which sometimes has its place, but is generally it's okay for file plans and for sort of classification sets and for navigation trees, but it's not great for when you're applying metadata, again, for the reason that if I want to apply consumer devices and it's the same concept, it doesn't matter where it is in the hierarchy, that concept is true across when it gets applied to the data. You'd want it to work in a similar way. So within this model now, I think if I run a report, non-unique terms alphabetical, I'll just step through all the things. You'll see there's quite a lot of duplicates in various places. So here, consulting services, for example, I do an alphabetical listing of consulting services. The ID of that term in the database is 283. And the idea of that one is 191. So it's the same term name, but they are actually different properties. So that means if I added different information to that term, mapped to different relationships, it wouldn't be common. As opposed to, so if I did the same thing with Greece, I could add a whole load of synonyms, I could add a whole load of relationships, and that may work towards the classification process, and I'd only have to maintain it once against the thing called Greece. You can always do things like tools, options, and say display term parent. So there's ways I can see consumer services. I can see it under different parentage, for example. And I've got the different parents of contract manufacturing and hardware. So we can work with this in a number of ways. We could, of course, separate it out into different models. We could separate the whole lot out into classes. It's a very flexible tool. The questions that we would go through with yourself is to work out what is this taxonomy being used for and what will it be used for in the future. And then we'll work out the most appropriate way of modeling it. I hope that was helpful.